Alright, it's Henry again, and this is going to be my work in progress video for the Gundam 1 Year War version. And this is the video game color version. Like I said in the unboxing video, there are two different versions of this kit. Animation color version and the video game color version. This is the first one to be released, and it's not a limited edition, but it is kind of hard to find. Bandai doesn't do production runs on this kit very often. But as you can see, it's molded in much softer colors than a RX-78 normally is. We've got this kind of really light yellowish tan color for the white parts, a very soft, almost pastel blue and red, and then the yellow parts are almost normal. Gray parts are, we got actually two different shades of gray. The inner frame is molded in a slightly darker gray, as you can see on the hands, and the weapons and the backpack are in a lighter gray. So I think what I'm going to be doing is painting this according to the original color scheme. Going to be basically copying the box art, but I am going to do some shading on this and try to make it look a little bit nicer than just a straight basic paint job. So first thing to do is going to be disassembly. There aren't a whole lot of seam lines on this kit. There is one seam line on the head right there I'll have to take care of, and I've actually already used cement and sanded down the seam lines around the beam rifle and the bazooka, and there was a seam line around the spike ball of the Gundam hammer, but that wasn't very difficult to take care of at all. So all I got to do is take this guy apart and start painting. Oh, I almost forgot. I was given these Gaia color paints, Hobby Japan Special Edition Seria Masuo Special Color Set. And it's actually got some colors that are really close to the ones used on this kit. It's got this light yellow. I think if I just add some white to that and lighten it up, it'll be really close to this color. And then the blue is actually almost exactly the same as the blue Bandai used. It might even be a little bit more desaturated. And then the red as well, also very close to the red Bandai used on this kit. And then it comes with green, but RX-78 doesn't have any green on it, so. And then the gray I'll just have to make myself. Actually, I already have gray that I've made up, and I'll just have to lighten it a bit. And then the yellow, I'll just use whatever yellow is closest to this. Now in terms of decals, this is before water slides were commonplace. Actually, they're still not commonplace. What am I talking about? There is a water slide decal set for this kit, but as anybody knows, nowadays Gundam decals are kind of hard to come by. So we got these stickers. I'm not going to be using those. The dry transfer decals I more than likely will use because they actually look really good. And then instead of using these stickers for the caution markings, which really that's all it is just caution markings, I've got plenty of third-party water slides that I can use for caution markings, so I'll just substitute those. Okay, so let's get to painting. Starting off with the head, you'll notice that I have applied some masking tape to the face. That's because I had to paint the face and the eyes first in order to fix the seam line on the head. Alternatively, you could paint the face separately and then just glue it up inside the head, but didn't really feel like doing that this time, so I simply painted the face first, assembled it inside the head, masked it off with tape, and then fixed the seam line, and now I'm painting the rest of the head. For the inner frame parts, or at least some of the inner frame parts. I'm using gunmetal, starting off with a coat of gloss black, and then spraying gunmetal paint on top of that. Onto the yellow parts, I'm using some Mr. Color Yellow with a little bit of orange thrown in there to give it a nice vibrant look. And then I'll be highlighting this with some of that Hobby Japan Guide Notes yellow that I showed off earlier. Now for the chain, I actually had to get really creative with how I ended up painting this, because being a pre-assembled plastic chain, it'd be really hard to hold on to, so I figured I could use two painting skewers kind of like chopsticks and spread the chain between the two, and honestly it worked out pretty well. Now for the red parts, I tried something a little different. Normally I use white and gray for pre-shading when I do red parts. This time I used white and purple. I did all my pre-shading with purple on top of a white base, and now I'm just going over it with that Guy Notes kind of a dusty brick red color, and I think it's going to turn out pretty good. And then for the blue parts, just going over it with the, ended up mixing up the Hobby Japan blue with a little bit of gray to sort of get a nice dull blue, because I don't want it to be too awfully bright. Now onto the dry transfer decals. I am preparing a little bit of Scotch tape, namely because it's clear. Being clear is very important. You can use masking tape, but having a tape you can actually see through really helps to let you figure out when the dry transfer is actually transferred onto the part. So I've cut out each individual decal, this one for the shield, just taping it to the front of the shield and using my little metal burnishing tool, which is literally just a metal rod with a rounded end, and using that to slowly, carefully rub the decal into place, and checking it every once in a while just to make sure that it's completely transferred onto the shield. And when you get close to being finished, you can carefully lift up the dry transfer to make sure everything's transferred correctly, and if it's not, you can just put it back down and keep rubbing. But eventually, with some patience, it'll all transfer over to the part, and honestly I think they look even better than water slides because they don't have an edge to them. Now onto the wash. I'm doing things a little bit different this time. I normally do a panel line wash on my kits, but this time I thinned it down with a little bit of Artist's oil thinner, and I'm just going to see how this works out. I don't want it to be quite as thick because I'm not doing the weathering as heavy as I normally do, so I'm using a thinner panel line wash this time around. Maybe I won't have to do quite as much cleanup afterwards. And finally on to top coat. I'm using the same top coat I've been using for years, All Clad 2. This time I'm using their flat. It's a nice, smooth, velvety flat finish. Alright, so this is what the 1 Year War Gundam ends up looking like. The ones I've painted in the past, I think I did one in just straight red, white, yellow, and blue. And then I think I did another one that was maybe like a custom color scheme. I can't remember, but I've never actually done one that was in the original, the box art 1 Year War colors. So I actually did it a little bit more faded than what it shows in the manual. The colors on mine are a little bit more subdued. As you can see, the blue and the red in particular are a bit brighter than what I did on mine, but I actually like the way mine turned out. I'm really, really liking this faded red and blue. In fact, when I was airbrushing the blue, it almost, my eyes were playing tricks on me. It kind of looked more gray than blue, but once you get it all put together, it's obviously just a very, very desaturated blue. So pretty darn happy with how it turned out. And I didn't do any chipping on it. I did take some of my Tamiya Weathering Master pigments and just did a few little streaky things like here on the shield and on the shoulder armor here, a little bit on the knees. So not a whole lot. I didn't really want to do like legit weathering on this. I just wanted to put a little bit of streakiness on there, some soft little subtle things. I guess my one only complaint with the job I did on the kit was I think the panel wash that I used was a little bit too diluted. I think I thinned it too much, because there are some places where like the panel lines barely look like they were filled in at all. I tried to go back with a Real Touch marker and touch up some of them, but some of the panel lines are just not filled in great. I mean, I guess I could have gone back and done a second wash, but I was impatient. It's not too distracting. I think it's one of those things like where you have to already know it's there to be able to notice it. But overall, I am pretty pleased with the way it turned out. So that about does it for this video, and instead of including the photo gallery slideshow thing on this video, I'm just going to make it a separate video that I'll upload after this one. So with that, I'll see you guys next time.
The disasters that are coming, the military, I'm sorry, the government knows about them, and there's a lot of safe areas in this world that they could begin moving